Hi, this is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video, I'm going to be demonstrating how to crochet the Red Truck Christmas Ornament, which is a free pattern you'll find on mooglyblog.com. Please go to the link in the description or go to your favorite search engine and simply type in Red Truck Christmas Ornament Moogly, and it should pop right up. To make this pattern, I used a USG 4mm crochet hook and approximately 40 yards, most likely less, of Bernat Maker Minis, which is a number 5 bulky weight yarn. I used just a little bit of 4 of the colors from the pack: the red, the white, the green, and the brown. I also used just a tiny amount of fiber fill, so you could use scrap yarn if you don't want to purchase fiber fill for this project. The finished size of our ornament is approximately 4 inches long and about 2.5 inches tall, excluding the hanging loop. And you can add a yarn loop like I've done here, or add a metal loop if you prefer. Let's take a closer look at the finished Red Truck Christmas ornament. All right, so as you can see here, I've already started row 1 with a chain of 5. And I just wanted to point out, this is a bulky weight yarn and a very small hook for this size of yarn. We want to be working tightly, so if you're using a different yarn, you'll want to adjust the size of the hook to make sure you get nice tight stitches for your little amigurumi ornament. After we've chained 5, we're going to skip the chain closest to the hook and single crochet in each remaining chain across. I prefer to work into the back hump, but you can work into whichever portion of the chain you prefer. So we should have 4 single crochets here at the end of row 1. Now, as I mentioned, I am working tightly, so each one of these stitches might take just a little bit of extra time. We don't want a loose drapey fabric for this ornament. We want our stitches to be tight and our fabric to end up being a little bit stiff. Of course, the type of yarn you're using will have a big effect on that, and that's why I encourage you to adjust the hook to whatever makes that yarn work up in the fabric you need. So here we've got our first 4 single crochets made, and we're done with row 1. Rows 2 through 4, pretty simple. We're making the very top of the cab of our truck right now. Now, it's not officially the cab portion of our pattern, that's the white portion, but if you're familiar with how trucks are made, up on top of the roof, if you will, above the rider portion of the truck. And rows 2 through 4 here are just chain 1 and single crochet in each stitch across. So for the first 4 rows, we just have 4 single crochets worked back and forth in rows. So here's my last stitch for row 2, and I need to add 2 more rows to this section. So now I've got 4 rows made, and you can see I've made a nice little square. So now we're ready for round 5. We're going to switch from working in rows to working in rounds, but it's going to start out the same way. We chain 1 and turn, or turn and chain 1, however you like to do it. And now we're going to single crochet across this row again. But if you haven't yet, now is a great time to go ahead and start pulling up those stitch markers. So I'm going to put a stitch marker right in the first one of this row because now it's a round. I'm going to go all the way around the little square. So we can start sort of bringing down the lid of our truck, if you will. So I will single crochet in each of those 4 stitches across the previous row, just as I've been doing. There we go. There's the last one. And now we're simply going to single crochet 4 stitches all down along this side. So as you sort of turn, we're not flipping our work over, but we're spinning it, if you will. Make sure we want to work in the side of this row, not the side of the row we just made. So we want to make sure to drop down a row so that we come and work in the side of that 4th row, not what would have been the 5th row there. So there's 1. Find a couple loops along the side here, whatever looks good to you. 2. Come down to this row. I like to split the stitch for this, not go around the whole stitch. That will cause more holes. So there's 3. That brings us down to our last row here, which is actually our first row. And we work a single crochet right in the side of that one. Now you can see this is starting to pull our truck top together a little bit, and that's good. That's what we want. We don't want this laying completely flat. We want it to have a slightly rounded roof. That's probably would have been a good word to be using all along, right? All right, so now we are down at our bottom of our first row here, and we're just going to single crochet in the bottom of each of these stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Need to pull up some more yarn. Yarn's coming for a visit. There we go. And now we are ready to work up the other side. You can see it wants to cup up like this. I like to just kind of push it down a little bit out of the way, whatever's easiest for you. Now, this is where it can get a little confusing because looking at it from this angle, there's like 6 rows here, but of course we only want to put 4 stitches in this side. So again, we want to make sure we don't work in the side of this row, that we come down here and work in the sides of these rows. So we'll just take our time. There we go. With this yarn in particular, it's a tube yarn, so you can't split the yarn itself. So it really forces you to go around the whole loop there, which sometimes when you're working tightly can be a little bit tricky. But just take your time with it, as I've done. Oops. Take a little more time on that one. Get in there properly around that loop. There we go. All right. So now I have worked 16 stitches all the way around, right? But what I'm going to do is before I join, I'm going to go ahead and mark that last stitch right there. This way, it'll just be easier for me to know exactly what's the first and last stitch of each round, and I won't get mixed up with any slip stitches or anything, because this next round is going to be pretty interesting. So now that I've worked all the way around, I'm going to go ahead and join with a slip stitch, like so. And now we have finished round 5. Now we're ready for round 6. And round 6 is, let me bring up the original here to kind of give you a visual. We're starting up here. This is what we've made. Now round 6, we're going to make these sort of sections right here. So the sides of the windshield, if you will, and we're going to work some linked stitches here across the back to give us a solid back for the front of our truck. All right, so let's jump on into it, round 6. We are going to start with a chainless starting treble crochet. Now, if you cannot make this stitch, if you don't enjoy this stitch, you can instead chain 4, but I really encourage you to attempt this one, especially for this project. What we want to do is we start by pulling up the loop on our hook, our active loop, to about the height of a treble crochet. So you may need to adjust this a little bit as you go. This is a nice stretchy yarn, so it gives you a little bit more play with this one too. So I know it's going to be about this tall, about this high, maybe just a little bit taller. Then I'm going to secure the top of the loop on my hook with my finger. This is the most important part. I need this loop to not be able to move on the hook itself. It needs to be able to be glued to the top of the hook right there, the top of the loop. Then I'm going to yarn over twice with the loop itself. So I go down and around and down and around. Now, I kind of ran out of loop right there. That means I need to pull up a little bit more space, make my loop a little bit taller. If you have too much, if you've got a bunch of extra, it means your loop needs to be a little bit shorter. So again, I'm going to pull up my loop, secure the top of it, and yarn over twice with the loop itself. Insert my hook right in that first marked stitch, yarn over, pull a loop up and through. I still have a grip on the top of that loop. That's the most important thing. I have not let go of that. Yarn over, pull through that loop, and behind our yarn over again, pull through that loop, and behind the yarn over, do them in bits if you need to, yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops. And you'll notice it wasn't until I was down to those last 2 loops that I released the top of that stitch. So that is a chainless starting treble crochet. And now it's the first stitch of this round. So I'm going to go ahead and take my stitch marker and move it right into the 2 loops at the top of that stitch. I want to find the 2 loops that make the V. There we go. So now you can see I've marked the top of the chainless starting treble crochet. Now we chain 2, 1, 2. We're going to skip 2 stitches, 1, 2. So I'm going to put my thumb right there on that third one so I know where I'm going. And now we are going to work a treble crochet right in that next stitch. So I'll yarn over twice, jump right to that stitch, insert my hook, yarn over and pull up my loop. And now what I want to do is I want to keep my treble crochet from getting really leggy. That's just kind of the term I use if you've made tall stitches before and the loops just seem a little too big on them, they don't seem nice and close together. And the trick to that is really, as much as possible, keeping all of these loops really tight together on your hook as you work them off. So I'm really going to do my best to sort of push those together and hold them together as I work these loops off. So I'll yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. You can see that kept that stitch from getting overly big, especially at the top. So now what we're going to do after we've made that one is we work a linked treble crochet in the next 5 stitches. So what we'll want to do is take a closer look at the treble crochet we just made. If we look closely, the yarn overs have created these almost horizontal loops. There's one right here and one right here. They're not completely horizontal, but they're the most horizontal loops on the stitch. I'll try and pick them up here with my needles. There's the top one and there's the bottom one. If you watch as you make a treble crochet, you'll see that those are the yarn over strands. That's where they land. And those are what we're looking at when we're making a linked treble crochet. So let's go ahead and make one together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to insert my hook from above right through that top yarn over of the previous stitch. Then I yarn over and pull up a loop. I'm going to take the time to pull that loop up to the height or the size as the active loop. I'm already on my hook. Then I come down to this bottom horizontal loop. Same thing. Insert my hook from above, right through that loop, yarn over, and pull up another loop. So now, instead of yarning over twice for a treble crochet, we've pulled up those yarn overs through the previous stitch. So now we go to the next stitch down here of the previous row, insert our hook, yarn over and pull up our loop, and then we work it off just as we normally would a treble. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. So you can start to see how those horizontal bars, the quote-unquote yarn overs now, they're not exactly yarn overs, but they function as the yarn overs. Those are a little bit easier to see now in this one. And that's great because we have 4 more to make. So we do the same thing. We find that top horizontal bar, insert our hook from above, right through it, yarn over and pull up our loop. Give that a little tug. We don't want to pull back on our working yarn and make it tight. We want it to be a nice, good-sized loop. Then we go down to the bottom one, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Go to the next stitch, insert our hook, yarn over, and pull up a loop. And now, with 4 loops on the hook, we work off our treble. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. That is 2. We've got 3 more. I'll do them a little quicker now. We go through the top loop, pull up our loop, go through the bottom loop, pull up our loop, go to the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Let's do another one. Go through the top loop, pull up a loop, go through the bottom loop, pull up a loop, go to the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. So that is 4 of them. We've got our initial treble and 1, 2, 3, 4 linked trebles. So we've got 1 more linked treble to go. So we'll go ahead and do it together. Go in the top loop, pull up a loop, go into the bottom loop, pull up a loop, go into the next stitch and pull up a loop. Once we've got 4 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. So you can see the linked treble crochets have given us this neat effect of the lines, but more importantly, have given us a nice, very solid fabric that nothing's going to peek through. So once we have those 5 linked treble crochets made, we chain 2, 1, 2, skip the next 2 stitches, 1, 2. So I'm going to put my thumb right on that next one so I know where I'm going. And now I'm going to treble crochet right in that stitch. So remember, we're skipping 2. We go to the next one. And this is a regular treble crochet, so I've just yarned over twice. There we go. And now, to finish up this row, we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We skip the next 4 stitches, and that's going to land us back working a slip stitch right in the top of that chainless starting treble crochet. So we're going to skip all these here. We can go ahead and take this last stitch marker out. We don't need it anymore, or at least not for right now. And right now we are going to just kind of take your time, make sure everything's straightened out, and find that top of that chainless starting treble crochet. Get our hook in there. Might have to take the stitch marker out. Let's see. Nope, I got my hook right in there with it. All right, so now we can join with a slip stitch. There we go. So it looks a little strange right now, right? Kind of almost looks like a little space helmet, I think, at this point. But this is the top of our truck. So we're going to be inserting a little white cabin here. And up next, we'll be making the hood and starting the back of the truck. So now we're ready for round 7. We're going to start with the chain 1. And now we're going to work a single crochet right in this top of this first treble. So I'm going to take that stitch marker out of my way, work my single crochet right in the top of that chainless starting treble, and I will mark the top of that stitch with a stitch marker because it's the new first stitch of my round. Then I'm going to single crochet in each of the next 2 chains. And for this, I do recommend you crochet in the actual chains, not in the chain space. We really want our stitches here to be held exactly in place. We don't want them to have any more wiggle room than absolutely necessary. So we want to work them into the actual chains. There we go. So we've got our single crochet in the top of the treble crochet and a single crochet in each of the next 2 chains. After that, we're going to single crochet in the next treble. Get that through. We are working tightly. We want to have a nice tight fabric, so that means sometimes you have to struggle just a little bit. Next, we're going to chain 14. We're not going to crochet across here. We want to create the back of our truck. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. And we want to make these stitches relatively tight. Again, we're sort of doing an amigurumi style project here. We don't want loose stitches, but remember, you are going to be working back into these chains, so don't try and make them super tight either. Now, I do like having a little table or something in front of me, even just your lap, so you can lay this out and make sure, because as you're crocheting a long chain like this, our projects like to spin around on us, and we want to make sure that everything's laid out and nice and flat before we join again. So I do like to just sort of lay it out, and I can look at the tops of those chains and make sure there's no twists, and I can see that going back into the stitches that I've already made attached to the project. So that's how I check that. Then I'm going to carefully bring it around so I know I'm not twisting anything. And what I need to do now is skip the next 4 stitches and then single crochet over here. So I know I'm going to skip 1, 2, 3, 4, and single crochet. It'll be that last before the chains again, that last stitch. So we work a single crochet right in there. I'm going to double check and make sure I didn't get any twists. No twists on my trunk, so that's good. And now we're back to those chain spaces. So we're going to single crochet in each of those chains on our side window here again. 1 and 2. Get in there. Like so. There we go. And then we're going to single crochet in this next treble. And that brings us to essentially, if we kind of look at it from above here, you can see this is what's going to be the hood of our truck. So this gets a little bit trickier. We've got just a few stitches to address though. So we're going to do a little bit of shaping right here. What we're going to do, we've got these 4 chains right here left that we can work into. So we're going to go into the first one of those with a slip stitch. Just again, we're working into the chains. There we go. So take your time. This one's going to be a slip stitch. And then we're going to do a chainless starting double crochet in that same chain. So we're going to pull up our loop to the height of a double crochet now, so not quite as tall as the treble crochet we made before. Secure the top of that loop with our finger just as we did before, but now it's a double crochet, so we only need to yarn over once. So we go down and around just the one time, right into that same chain, yarn over, pull our loop carefully up and through, yarn over, pull through that loop and behind the yarn over. Now we can release that loop and yarn over and pull through 2. There we go. Now, it's not the first stitch of the round, but sometimes these can be a little tricky to find. So I like to go ahead and put a stitch marker right in the top of that stitch anyway, just to help me out and find the top of that stitch when I come around for the next round. Like so. Now what we're going to do is work a double crochet in each of the next 3 chains. So again, we want to take our time to go into the actual chains. And at this point, when I started out, at the top of our roof, if you will, I was working to the back hump of the chain. Now we're working into chains that have been connected to other things. You'll probably want to just go ahead and work under the top 2 loops. I think that's going to be a lot easier. So there's 1, and it will lay nicer too. Again, just got to take our time with it though. There we are. 2. Only 1 more to go. That puts us right in that last chain there before we come back to where we began. So there we go. That is our 3rd double crochet right there. It takes a minute, but like I say, sometimes you just have to take your time with it. Now what we need to do is work 2 slip stitches in the post of the last double crochet we just made. So we just made that double crochet, but now we need to work our way back down. That's how we sort of worked our way up right there with the standing stitch. Now we need to work our way back down to join to that first stitch of the round. So I'm going to just kind of look at the double crochet we just made. And every double crochet sort of has an upper half and a bottom half, right? We know that from working into the side when we work around the sides of an object. So what I want to do is just look at the top half of my stitch here. I'm going to carefully pull up, or pick up, I should say, a couple loops there right along the side, yarn over, pull my loop through, and I'm going to make sure that this isn't a tight slip stitch. I want to be able to work back into it later. So I'm going to take the time to pull that loop up and through before I pull it through the active loop. And I'm going to do my best to not pull back on my working yarn and tighten that up. Then I'm going to go down to the bottom half of our stitch. And I like to just get those 2 loops right along the side, even if they don't want to come together. There we go. Yarn over and pull my loop through. Again, gently pull that loop up and then right through the active loop without pulling back on our working yarn. Then I'm ready to slip stitch to the first stitch of the round. Like so. And now you can see it still looks a little goofy. Here we're finished round 7, but it is starting to take a little bit of shape. We've got the hood right there and the back of our truck right here. We've worked our way down from the top of the roof, and now we're ready to make some sides. All right, so now we're ready for round 8. We're going to start with a chain 1, and we're going to single crochet in the first 4 stitches, the first 4 single crochets right here. So I'm going to take that stitch marker out for just a second while I put this single crochet right in our first stitch. And then, of course, mark the top of that stitch. And then I need to single crochet in the next 3 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3. There we go. And now we single crochet in each chain across. So that will be in each of those 14 chains. All right, so now I've single crocheted in each of those 14 chains, and we're back to the side of the front of our truck. So we're going to single crochet in the next 4 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now we come to that chainless starting double crochet. So if we look closely, we can see that one is right in that next stitch. So what we want to do is work 2 single crochets right in the side of that double crochet. So we want to look at it the same way we did when we made our slip stitches, but now we're going to the bottom half first. So we find a good looking place on the bottom half of it there to put the first single crochet. And then we look at it and we say, this looks like a likely spot on the top half to stick a second single crochet. And now we're at the top of that stitch. So we're going to single crochet right in the top of that chainless starting double crochet. And I think I'll go ahead and take that stitch marker out of my way now. So the same stitch that we worked 2 stitches into the side of, we're now going to work into the top. So that's that one. and then into the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. There we go. So now we've come to those 2 slip stitches there in the side, and we want to work a single crochet in each of those slip stitches. So there's 1, and there's 2. And with that, we're then ready to join with a slip stitch rather in that first stitch. So since we're working one more round here, I'm going to go ahead and mark that last single crochet with a stitch marker before I join. There we go. So now you can see we've built up a little more body to our truck. Round 9 is simply chain 1 and single crochet in each stitch around. So now you can see I've worked another round all the way around, just single crochets in each stitch. So now we're ready to join with a slip stitch and finish off this piece. So once you've got that finished off, you can set this piece aside and we'll come back to it later. So there's one more piece that we make for our ornament using the red yarn, and that's the bottom of the truck. It's the bottom piece right on the bottom of our ornament here that we put on at the end that closes everything up. And this is a very simple piece indeed. You can see here I have started with a chain of 12. I'm going to skip the chain closest to the hook and single crochet in each of the remaining 11 chains. So for this piece, we simply work a total of 4 rows back and forth, single crocheting in each row. So that's 4 rows of 11 single crochets. All right, so here you can see I've worked 4 rows back and forth, 11 single crochets in each row, and that's really all there is to that bottom piece. Very simple. However, we're going to sew that piece onto the bottom of our truck, so I do want to go ahead and leave a little bit of a long tail for sewing on this one. About 2.5 times the circumference of the piece is usually plenty. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that yarn, and then I will just go ahead and pull that loop up and through and set it aside with the rest of the truck while I make the next piece. All right, so the next piece that we make is the cab insert with white yarn. So I've pulled up my purple paper here to give us a little bit of a better backdrop to see with. We're going to start this piece with round 1, making a magic circle. So to do this, I take the yarn and I hold out the first finger of my non-hook hand and I go over it twice towards me. Then I hold on to the working end and the tail end of the yarn, insert my hook under both of those loops, and pull the loop that's furthest back just up and under the other one. Then I will yarn over and pull a loop through. Then I'm ready to start crocheting, but I'm going to keep this loop on my finger for now, and I'm going to make sure that all of my stitches go into this loop and that they catch the tail inside that stitch as well. Let's go ahead and get started. For this pattern, we chain 1. Oop, let me pull that all the way through, get my hand situated on my hook again here. There we go. And now we are going to work 3 single crochets and a chain 2 4 times into the ring. Let's do it together. We start with 3 single crochets. So I'm going to insert my hook into that loop and make sure that tail end is over it as well. And make a single crochet. With that stitch made, my loop is held pretty well open and I can pull my finger out. And I'm also going to take the time to go ahead and put a stitch marker right in the top of that first single crochet. I pull that loop down, and then we've got 2 more, because remember, we single crochet 3. So there's 1, 2, and 3. There we go. Now we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and that is our repeat. We do it again, single crochet 3, and again, you can see I'm going in, I'm catching that tail end on top of my hook so that it's inside each stitch. That's what allows us to make the magic happen. So there's 2 and 3 single crochets and chain 2. Oop, there we go. And then we do it again, sort of straighten everything out here. Single crochet 3, 1, 2, 3, and chain 2. And now we need to do that one more time, but I want to point out if it looks like, and you can see on mine, that tail end is getting a little short and stubby, we can do a little pre-pulling. Pull down on that tail a little bit and start making that circle just a little bit smaller ahead. There we go. Now we've got plenty of tail for us to work over. We can push that stitch marker out of the way. We want to work 3 more single crochets right into this ring. Still want to catch that tail. If we don't catch the tail inside our stitches, then pulling on it won't close up the ring. So there's 1. Whoop. Try that again. 2 and 3. And then we chain 2. 1, 2. And join with a slip stitch to that first single crochet right there. Like so. There we go. So now with those first 12 stitches made, 3, 3, 3, and 3, we can finally pull this magic ring the rest of the way closed. So I'm going to pull this loop up so I can put my hook down. There we go. And then we're going to give a really strong pull back on this yarn. So if you're using a really weak yarn, something that is easy to break by hand, you may want to use a different technique. Maybe just start with an adjustable ring or something else in the middle. Whatever works for you. Honestly, this part's going to be hidden inside the ornament anyway. It's going to go up inside the truck. So however this looks, however you like to get it started is totally fine. If you have a little gap there, again, it's not going to show. It's going to be on the inside of the ornament. So you don't have to worry about making this particular part particularly pretty. Now, as we continue, the next rows will show through the windows of the cab. So now we are ready for round 2. Round 2, we're going to chain 1 and single crochet in each of those first 3 stitches. So I'm going to pull my stitch marker out of the way for just a moment so I can work into that first stitch. And now I'll put the stitch marker in that stitch. There we go. And then single crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. 1. Oop, my loop was a little big on that. Let me pull that loop down a little bit. There we go. We still want to be working tightly so that we have a nice solid fabric. There we go. So we've got single crochets in each of those first 3 stitches. And now what we're going to do is single crochet in the chain 2 space. So just 1 single crochet right in the chain 2 space. Then we do it all again. Single crochet in the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and single crochet in the chain 2 space. You can see, much like when we were making the top of our truck, this is starting to cup up on me. And I like to just kind of push it the opposite direction out of my way. We do need to do that repeat 2 more times because we've got 2 more sides here. So 1, 2, 3, and in the chain 2 space. And then 1, 2, 3. Let's make sure pull. If you get a little confused, you can always pull your work apart. It's just yarn. Straighten it out a little bit. Find where you're going. 3. Now we're at a chain 2 space. So I'm gonna single crochet in that chain 2 space. And that is it for round 2. So now we've got 16 single crochets all the way around. We can go ahead before I join, since I know I'm going to be working in simple rounds now, I'm going to mark that last stitch so I don't start accidentally increasing by working into my slip stitches. And now I can slip stitch right in that first stitch of the round. So this is what the cab insert is going to look like after round 2. Looks a little silly right now, but we've got more work to do. Rounds 3 through 7 are just single crochet in each stitch around. So we chain 1, single crochet in each stitch around, join. Chain 1, single crochet in each stitch around, and join. And we do that until we have a total of 7 rounds in our cab insert. So here we have the finished cab insert. You can see I was able to turn it wrong side out and give a really strong pull on that top thread or our first end and get the top of that closed up a little tighter. But again, that's all going to be hidden inside the ornament, so don't worry too much about it. After you've woven in this end and the other one just a little bit to make sure they're secure, then don't worry too much about trimming them off closely. You can go ahead and just stuff them inside the cab, and that will actually help you save a little bit on fiber fill. But for now, we're ready to set this piece aside and make the tree. So now, of course, we want to pull out the green yarn to make our tree, and we're going to start round 1 again with a magic circle. So same thing, over my finger twice towards me, secure those ends, insert my hook, grab that first loop, pull it underneath the first one so I can yarn over and pull through. And now we're ready to start stitching. Here for round 1, we're going to chain 1 and work 6 single crochets right into the ring. So again, I want to make sure that I go into the ring itself and that the tail portion of the yarn right here is enclosed in each of those stitches so that I can pull on it to close those up afterwards. Again, we need to work over that tail to make the magic happen. So there's the first 3. I'll go ahead and pull my finger out now and add 3 more. So 4, 5, and 6. And you can see right now, it doesn't look like much of a circle, right? I've got all this space right here, but now we get to pull on that tail and close it right up. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this one nice and tight at this point. And I do like to just kind of put my other finger over it. I know it makes it hard to show, but it helps steady it a little bit while you pull. And again, if you're using a yarn that's more prone to breakage, you may want to start with a different technique rather than the magic circle to make sure that you don't break your yarn there. So once we've got our 6 single crochets made, I'm going to go ahead and join to that first single crochet that we made with a slip stitch. And we can go ahead and start using stitch markers on this one too. I'll probably start doing that here. Let me go ahead, because that's that slip stitch. Looks a lot like the rest of the stitches, right? I'm going to go ahead and make sure to put one here in that last stitch, and I'll put one here in the first stitch of round 2. But we've got a tiny little start here for round 1. All right, from here on out through most of the rest of the tree, we're going to be working in the back loop only. And what this does is it gives us a really nice little additional bit of texture you can see here on our tree. With those lines going around, that's from working in the back loop only. So for round 2, we start with a chain 1, and now we're going to work into the back loop. So what does that mean? When we look at the top of any crochet stitch, we've got 2 loops, right? It sort of looks like a V laid on its side. We've got the loop closest to us, and there's a loop furthest away. The front loop is the one closest to us, the crocheter, and the back loop is the one furthest away from the crocheter. It's always relative to you and how you're looking at your crochet. So to work under the back loop only, I'm going to work a single crochet in the next stitch. So this is the one I actually joined to. This is why having those stitch markers can be so handy. So we know we're going to work into this one, and I'm going to put my hook right between the 2 loops of that V, so I catch just the back loop. Then I can yarn over and pull up a loop and finish my single crochet as usual. And I'll go ahead and put a stitch marker right in that stitch since it's the first stitch of this round. There we go. Now, looking at our instructions, our repeat is single crochet in the next stitch, 2 single crochets in the stitch after that. So we've got 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So that means our next stitch gets 2. Again, I'm going to go under just the back loop and put 1, 2 single crochets right in that same spot. Then we do that repeat again. Single crochet in the back loop only of the next stitch, 2 in the next, 1 and 2. Now we should do that one more time, and we can tell we're in the right spot because there's our stitch marker. So 1 in the back loop only of the next stitch, and then 2 in the final one. If we want to, we can go ahead and move that stitch marker on out of the way. And in our last stitch, we'll put 1 and 2. Then I'm going to go ahead and replace that stitch marker before I make the slip stitch so that I don't get confused. Again, this is going to look a little goofy at this point, but we want to, as it's going to start making the cone, we want to push it away from us a little bit there so that we get the right side of our stitches on the outside of our tree. So now this is where those stitch markers are so handy. This would easily look like a stitch, right? But it's not. It's our slip stitch. So we're going to put our hook all the way over here in the top of that stitch and make our slip stitch. And this will pull us more into that cone shape, and we can just push it right side out. Like so. There we go. So now you can see already we're starting to get a little bit of that tree look, and we've only finished round 2. So for round 3, we're going to do a little bit more increasing, but again, we're going to be working in the back loop only throughout. So I chain 1, go ahead and get my stitch marker out of the way, and now we're going to work 2 single crochets in that first stitch. As soon as I've made the first one, though, I'm going to put my stitch marker in it. There we go. So there's 1. And now right in that same loop for a second one. And then we are going to work a single crochet in each of the next 2. Again, back loop only throughout this entire round. So 1 in that stitch and 1 in the next stitch. So let's do that repeat again together. 2 in the next stitch. So 1 and 2. Whoop. Get a better grip on my project here. There we go. And then 1 in each of the next stitches. 1 and 1. Just remember to catch only that back loop. This creates that really lovely texture for our tree. Now, there should only be 3 stitches left, and that's what we've got, so we know we're in the right spot. 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2, and a single crochet in each of the last 2 stitches. 1 in that stitch, and now we'll move that stitch marker out of the way, and we'll do 1 in that very last stitch. Replace the stitch marker. And now we're ready to join again with our slip stitch. So again, remember, this is why we use our stitch marker, so we don't get confused with that slip stitch right there from the last round. We put our hook all the way over there and let those stitches come together to keep creating that great cone shape. So now we're ready for round 4. Round 4 is again in the back loop only. And this is our round of increases again, another round of increases for our tree. We're going to chain 1. I'm going to move that first stitch marker out of the way. And for this repeat, we single crochet, again, back loop only, in the first 3 stitches. So I'll work in the first stitch and put my stitch marker in. Doesn't want to get in there. There we go. So there's 1. Pull our loop back down to size. 2. 3. And then 2 in the next stitch. So 1, 1, 1, 2. That is our repeat. Let's do it a couple more times together since we only have to do our repeats 3 times for our little tree since we're making sort of a cone shape and not a flat circle. We now single crochet in the next 3. 1, 1, 1, and then 2 in the next. 1 and 2. So we should have 4 stitches left. I always like to stop and check and make sure I'm in the right spot. That's what we have. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we single crochet in the back loop only of these next 3. 1, 2, and 3. And now we're at that last stitch. So I'll move the stitch marker out of the way and put 2 single crochets in that last one. 1 and 2. And now I'll mark that stitch. Here we go. And join with a slip stitch. Again, make sure we're skipping over that slip stitch from the previous round. There we go. And now we have finished with round 4. And we should have a total of 15 stitches. So now we're ready for round 5, and rounds 5 through 7 are all the same. We just chain 1 and back loop only single crochet in each stitch around. So rounds 5 through 7 should all have a total of 15 stitches. So now I've worked the first 7 rounds of our Christmas tree, and all we have left is one more round, round 8. So I'm going to go ahead and move the stitch marker out of the first stitch and just get it out of my way. And for this round, we're going to skip the first stitch and slip stitch in the next 3 stitches. Now, we're not going to come back and stitch into any of these, so I don't need to worry about making them particularly loose or tight, but I do want to just take a little bit of time and make sure that they're not super tight We don't want to pull the bottom of our tree together like this. So I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch in the next 3 stitches. This is the one we joined to, so I go right to the next one. And there's 1. Go to the next one. That's 2. And the next one. And that's 3 right there. All right. Next, we're going to back loop only, single crochet in the next 2 stitches. So we go right to the next stitch. There's 1, 2. Get that little tail end out of the way there. All right. Now we're going to back loop only half double crochet in the next 3 stitches. So we need a yarn over first, go into the next stitch. Again, back loop only, pull up our loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3. So there's 1, 2, and 3 of those. There we go. Straighten out my yarn, get my little first tail end out of the way there. Now we back loop only, single crochet in the next 2. So I'll get just that loop there. There we are, 1 and 2. And then we just slip stitch in each of the remaining stitches until we get back around to where we were. So now we can just work under both of those loops. You can still work under the back loop actually if you prefer, but it doesn't really matter. Just going to slip stitch in each of these last stitches. Oops. Try that again. There we go. You can see now we've gotten to that last stitch. I'm going to take that last stitch marker out of the way and set it aside. Slip stitch in that last stitch. And now I'm going to break the yarn. And we do want to leave a little bit of a long piece for sewing, but it doesn't have to be crazy long. We're not going to be sewing all the way around, a bunch of times for this one. So a good 12 to 18 inches should be plenty. And you don't have to measure. You can just eyeball it. Once we've got that yarn cut, we go ahead and pull up on that end. And now we're ready to start doing a little bit of assembly. Oops, but wait, there's more. We do need to make the tires. I almost forgot the tires. Each one of the tires is simply 1 round of crochet. You can see here, of course, we're going to break out the brown skein from our multi-pack of Bernat Maker Minis. And again, we're going to start with the magic circle. So I go over my finger twice towards me. Let me do that again, get myself a little bit more tail end to hold on to there. And then we start off the exact same way. We go under both of those loops, grab the one that's furthest back, pull it forward, yarn over, pull through, and now we're ready to start stitching. For this one, we're simply going to chain 1 and then work 10 half double crochets right into the ring. So we yarn over and we're going to work right into that ring again, making sure we catch the tail end in each one of those stitches. Get that pulled through. Now with 1 stitch on there, I'll go ahead and pull my finger out. I'm not going to bother with stitch markers this time because it's just a 1 round piece. 10 half double crochets, all worked into the magic circle. We tighten up the magic circle, weave in our ends just a little bit. We're going to use the final end of each tire to sew it to our finished truck, so we don't want to cut that off too short. Give ourselves a good, I like to give it a foot or so. We've got plenty of yarn here. This piece uses very little yarn, so you should have plenty in your kit. Let's see. Of course, I can't talk and count at the same time, so let's see how many we've got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I need 1 more. So we're going to put 1 more half double crochet right into that ring. And then I am going to go ahead and tighten that up. And we're going to pull that just as tight and closed as we can. There we go. Once that's nice and tightly pulled closed, we can go ahead and join with a slip stitch to that first stitch made. Find the top of it there. There we go. And then, as I say, you can break the yarn, leave a little bit of length, a good 12 inches or so ought to be more than enough. And you can set that aside until you've made a total of 4 tires, because of course we're going to need 4 tires for our truck. All right, now we've got all our pieces made and we are definitely ready for assembly. So here I've got our cab insert and our tree. And the first thing we're going to do is actually join these 2 pieces together. Now, I have secured the ends here, but I haven't trimmed them off. I'm just going to stuff them in there and let them be a little bit of free fiber fill or stuffing for us, right? Now we've got the tree. We've got the long end for the tree. I've secured the top end there, the first end, if you will, but now I've got the long end that we finished off with. So this is what I'm going to use to sew the tree to the cab. So I'm going to get that on my yarn needle. And first things first, we actually need this yarn end to travel all the way over here to where those 3 half double crochets are. That's going to be our sewing section. Now, this whole row is going to be pretty well hidden inside our truck. You can see here, it's all hidden down inside there. So we just want to sort of take our yarn and get sort of basically weave our way over there, essentially. We will do a little preliminary weaving of ends, if you will. So I'm just going to go on the inside of my tree here and use the loops along the inside to help me securely get over there, sort of weaving in our end at the same time here until I get about over to where those half double crochets are. There we are. It looks like that's the first one. So I'll go ahead and attach to that one. Then I'm going to bring my yarn right through the loops of that half double crochet to the outside. Let's see. Does that look like, was that the half double crochet? Yep, those are the 3 half double crochets. Let me get myself centered. There we are. Those are the 3 half double crochets of the tree, and that's where we're going to be sewing those 3 stitches to the side of this cab. Now, don't want to just sew anywhere on the cab. We need to take a look at it a little bit. So when I put my hand behind it here, hopefully it's a little bit easier to see, but we can still kind of see the square that we made, right? We've got the square right there. We want to find one of the flat sides of the square. So we can just find a flat side of the square and come right down here. Now what we want to do is find the second to the last row. So this would be the last row we made, because remember we were working that direction. So now we're going to come up to this row right here. And we're going to pick out 3 stitches right along this flat side right here to sew the 3 half double crochet stitches of our tree too. So you can kind of stitch into here however you like. I'm just going to go right here. You can kind of see beside that stitch and pull until my tree comes up to meet it, like so. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold these 2 pieces together and just take a few stitches. They don't have to be super fancy. They're not going to show at all. The main thing is to join this tree to the side of our cab. So I'm just going to go back to the inside of our cab here, find that next stitch over, and find the next stitch in our tree. Oop, let me try that again. Find the next stitch inside the cab, the next stitch on the tree, and pull my yarn through. And then I'll go back the other direction here through our tree, and then find the next stitch inside our cab, like so. And that is really all you need to do. This is just to hold them together nice and tight like this. At this point, I'll go ahead, since it's green yarn, I'll send it back into the tree, like so. And now we can just sort of tuck this end in here a little bit. We can weave it in a little bit here on the inside just to make sure it's not going to go anywhere. And then again, I'm not going to bother cutting this off. I'm just going to stuff it right on up into the tree so it can be a little bit of free stuffing. Might as well put it to use rather than putting it in the trash. So now we've got the tree and our cab attached, and we're ready to bring in the body of the truck. Okay, so now we need to address the ends on the body of the truck, if you will. And I do recommend that you go ahead and weave these 2 in and tuck them up and trim them off nicely. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the tree and the cab and insert them. So we know this is our cab insert. This is going to go right in the front of the truck. So we come from underneath and just stuff it right into the front of the truck. And we want to kind of line it up so that the top of that cab insert is right underneath the roof of the truck, as straight up and down inside there as possible. And you can use the windows to help you line up those rows. Sort of turn it a little bit there and get it to where it looks nice. Then the tree is, of course, going to come up through the trunk, or the back of the truck, I guess you'd say, like so. Now, the way we sewed these together, you can see they're just right inside here. What we want to do is do our best to sort of line up the back of the tree here with the back of the truck. You can see how that's sort of even. We've got it tilted up in here, sewn to that second row, so that we get a little bit of a tilt to our tree as it sticks out the back of the truck. That's why we sewed to that second row rather than to the bottom. Now, the bottom of our cab can also line up with the bottom of our truck, but we're going to have a little bit of space right here. So once you've got that sort of lined up as best you can right here, then we're ready for the next step. So now what we're going to do is use the tires to attach the cab and the tree in place inside the truck body. So I've woven in the center end, the beginning end of each tire, and now I'm going to take the outside end and put that on my yarn needle. And now I'm going to just really carefully, and this is going to require a little bit of fiddling, a little bit of eyeballing. We want to sort of hold that cab straight up and down inside the truck and use our best estimate of where we think a tire should go, right? And just kind of place it right where you think that tire you want it to be. And then we're going to start sewing through our tire, and we'll sew through the body of the truck and right on through the cab. I'm going to stick our yarn needle all the way through, like so, to hold that tire in place. There we go. So now we can hold that tire sort of down and take a couple more stitches through the fabric to hold that tire right where we want it. And we're going to come down to this bottom row here. I'm just going to catch those top loops, and then I can go right through my tire. Might have to push a little bit. We've been making some tight stitches, and that's the goal. So that's good. There we go. And pull it through. Now, I am not going to secure and weave in my ends on this until I have done all the other tires, because I've definitely been there before where it turns out one was a little off and I wanted to pull it off and readjust it a little bit before I put it back on. So definitely take your time, go through these, and make sure you get them right where you want them before you weave in these ends. But we're just going to put them again, another one on the other side, and then one on each side along the back that will go through the car and the tree. So the tires are sewn on, and now I need to decide if I'm going to make a yarn hanging loop or if I want to add one of the metal ornament hooks later on. If you want to add a yarn loop, now's your chance. What we're going to do is take whatever color of yarn you want to use. I like to use the green because my tree is green. And I'm just going to cut a short length, maybe a foot long tops. That's probably far more than necessary. Depends how long you want your loop to be. Now, I simply fold that length of yarn in half, and I put a knot in it. Now, the knot is going to determine the length of the loop. This loop's way too long for me, so I'm going to put my knot right about in the middle. We just make it a regular knot in it, right, like so. And then I'm going to do it again. I want that yarn knot to be nice and thick, like so. There we go. Nice, good knot. I know that's not going to come out between my stitches. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the loop itself, put it in my yarn needle, like so. So it looks a little funny, right? We've got the tail ends hanging out. Now, I'm going to pull these out of the way for just a moment. And I'm going to send this right through the top of my cab. And I actually like to aim a little bit towards the back, because I think if you put it right here, it would be a little bit back heavy. So I want to aim to put my loop right about there. So I'm just going to use my needle to start poking through. And that looks about even. That looks like a good spot. So I'll go ahead and push that through. And then I can pull that loop right on through the top of the cab. And if it wants to fight me a little bit, I can use my fingers to help continue pulling it through. Sometimes they get caught a little bit. There we go. Just got caught on all our ends and stuff in between. But now our loop is up and through. It is held in place with those knots on the inside. And now we can go back to assembly. Okay, now we're ready to pull up what little fiber fill we still need to fill out our tree. I just like to put a little bit here in the tree. That's probably even a little bit too much. A little bit in the cab, like so. Again, we don't need a whole lot. This isn't, we don't want to make it heavy or anything. It's just to help hold everything in place. And then I'm going to take a little bit, you can see right here, and just sort of roll it into sort of a long oval shape, if you will. And then I'm going to just really gently put this right between the cab and the front of that hood to push the hood out just a little bit further and help give it a little bit more of that truck shape. You can see it doesn't need much at all. I'm just going to gently push that in there and nicely even it out. So just a tiny, tiny bit of fiber fill, all we need to really hold all those pieces nice and open. I want to make sure that each piece is sort of in its compartment. And then finally, we're ready for that bottom piece. You can see I just tacked down the short end there. I've got my long end ready for sewing. And now we're ready to line it all up and sew the bottom onto our ornament. So what you can see here, we've got 11 stitches along each side and then 4 rows. Now, we've got 4 rows right along the front of our truck. So what I like to do is go ahead and grab those stitch markers one last time, and we're just going to take a real close look sort of between our tires and just eyeball it and say which are the first or front 4 stitches, if you will. So looking at my truck right now, I would say that one, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think these are the front 4 stitches of my truck right there, the front, evenly spaced in between those 2 front wheels. So now I'm ready to start sewing. I've got my long piece right here. I've got the long tail. You can see this would be the front of the truck, and this is going to be along the side. So now I'm just going to whip stitch this piece to my truck. I'm going to go to the next one after that last stitch marker because now I'm along the side. I'll go through that stitch right there and then through the first stitch along the side of the bottom of the truck and just gently pull that all the way through. Then I clear everything out, go to the next stitch, through the truck, through the bottom piece, next stitch, and we just pull that right gently on through. And we keep doing that all the way around. Next stitch, and we work our way all the way around. When we get down to the end of this side, then we'll sew the 4 stitches at this end to the 4 sides of those rows. Then up the other side. And finally, when we come around, those last 4 stitches that we've marked out should be sewn to the sides of those 4 rows. So we just use this to help us space out our work a little bit. If you'd like, you can use stitch markers all the way around, but we just keep whip stitching all the way around until we come back around and bury our final end. And that's how to crochet the Red Truck Christmas Ornament. Once again, you'll find this free pattern on mooglyblog.com. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Happy holidays, everybody.